Ever since the reveal of Black Ops 7 Zombies, the debates between classic and modern Zombies fans has only increased. And a lot of these discussions are very healthy and good, people just giving their thoughts and opinions on what types of systems they prefer. But there has also been a lot of conversation that hasn't been so good, where people are at each other's throats just for having different opinions. And I think a big reason a lot of these debates go down this way is because of the us versus them mentality, where you kind of put people into different groups and you treat everyone in that group the exact same based on your preconceived notions of what people in those groups are usually like from your perspective. And what's crazy about this is that it's not exclusive to Call of Duty Zombies. This is something that the entire world deals with on a daily basis. It's one of the big flaws about human nature. People just like to do this, and it's definitely something I think people need to avoid more. They need to be able to see the nuance in things. They need to be able to see the complexity of individuals. And so when it comes to the discussions between classic and modern zombies, it's way more nuanced than I feel like the majority of people allow for. Just as an example, I definitely prefer classic zombies. I prefer a lot of the classic systems. I prefer a lot of what the maps were like in the older games, specifically from Black Ops 2 to Black Ops 4. I'm actually not as high on World at War and Black Ops 1 as others are, but that Black Ops 2 to Black Ops 4 period is what I consider to be the peak of zombies. But that does not mean that I think everything those games did was perfect and that everything the games do nowadays is bad. And I also don't think that everything about the older games is better than the newer games. There's nuance to this, there's complexity, and it's important to talk about it and discuss it. And so I thought for this video, I would go over pretty much everything that I prefer about classic zombies, but also everything I prefer about modern zombies. Whether it's about specific mechanics or about general things that were happening more often during those eras. One thing that really encouraged me to make this video was one of Donuts' recent videos, which I'm sure you guys know who Donuts is. Link will be in the description to his video, where he showcased a bunch of positive comments from a variety of zombies YouTubers during Black Ops Cold War's life cycle. And I was included in this video, and there was quite a few positive things I said about modern zombie systems in those videos. They were taken from some Cold War Zombies reviews I did after D Machine came out. This has some of the best mechanics we've ever seen in Call of Duty Zombies history. I honestly feel like the core gameplay mechanics are pretty damn good in terms of the armor system, how it feels to kill zombies themselves, all the different like salvage drops that you can use for the different stations. I love the weapon rarities. And I do think a lot of what I said in that video is not something I currently believe anymore. So I thought this video would be helpful to share my full thoughts on things I do actually like about the modern systems, whether it's mechanics or just the general state of modern zombies. Of course, everyone is going to have a different idea as to what classic zombies should be considered as when it comes to what games should be included in that. For me personally, I'm going to say World at War 2 Infinite Warfare is definitely classic zombies. Obviously, some people might not consider BO3 and Infinite Warfare as classic. I think they're closer to classic than not being classic. And then Cold War onward, all the way up to what we're going to now have with Black Ops 7, would be modern zombies. World War II and Black Ops 4 kind of sit in this weird middle ground where they definitely have some similarities to modern zombies, but I would say overall they are closer to classic zombies, so I do want to put them in the classic zombies category, but I think for the sake of this video, just some aspects of those games will be included for the classic section, whereas other aspects of those games will be included for the modern section. Just as an example, the overall map design of World War II and BO4 I think deserves to be considered classic, but the mechanics, the core systems, are a little bit more modern. So let's start off with what I prefer about modern zombies, which this might surprise some people because I've been very critical about modern zombies for the past few years. But of course, as I said before, part of nuance and complexity is that you can prefer something while still liking things about the other thing. That's just how life works. For starters, I love how powerful weapons are in modern zombies. I think that is a great aspect of these recent games. I know some people will still argue that the guns are not powerful enough and they don't kill into the higher rounds, but if you go back to classic zombies, guns could never kill in the higher rounds. Of course, there were some exceptions. Obviously, with ammo mods in Black Ops 3, guns started to be able to kill pretty effectively in the later rounds due to the ammo mods. But if you play a game like Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2, most guns are not killing past round 30. They just kind of fall off and then you're stuck to using traps and wonder weapons. And some people prefer that. For sure, a lot of people enjoy that style of gameplay. For me, I like the fact that I can use any weapon in Black Ops 7 or in Cold War or in Vanguard, and I could comfortably use it even in the 30s, maybe even 40s sometimes. Obviously at that point, a lot of guns start falling off and then it becomes a little bit more selective, but guns just last a bit longer, and it's mainly due to the health cap more than anything, and just the way the damage works with the zombies nowadays. There's also a lot of damage increasing things for your weapons nowadays that we didn't have back in the day, and so overall this just makes more guns viable. But I wouldn't say it increases the weapon variety, which we'll talk about in the classic section of this video, because to me viability and variety are different things. Viability is whether or not a significant amount of items will be usable. That's what viability is, whereas variety is more so the encouragement of using weapons for different purposes. The next thing I love about Modern Zombies is the save and quit feature. Now obviously this was only introduced in Black Ops 6 and we're going to see it again in Black Ops 7. It was not in Cold War, Vanguard, or MWZ, but it still is a Modern Zombies feature that I've been wanting to see for ages. I've been asking for a save and quit feature pretty much since Black Ops 1. I've been playing zombies since World at War, and that was always my biggest criticism with the game. I wanted to get into the high round community. I always wanted to try to get to round 100, try to get to round 200, and I always told myself I'm never going to do it because I'm not going to sit there for 5+ hours to try and do it. And back in the day, you really shouldn't leave your Xbox on for that long. It really wasn't good for the system, so I always had to shut it off. Therefore, I wasn't going to save my progress. And even nowadays, I don't want to leave my Xbox on all night, and I would like to play other games sometimes. I don't want to be stuck to just playing the one game and leaving it on pause. So the save and quit feature really has saved me a lot because I can just pause it if I'm on a high round and I want to go play a different game or go do something else, and then I can come back later and just continue the game. It is a fantastic feature and by far one of the best things to happen to zombies. The next thing is kind of small, but I really do love it. It's the fact that weapons drop on the floor when you pick up a new weapon. This was obviously not a thing before Cold War, so if you picked up a weapon out of the mystery box, the current weapon you were holding would just disappear. It would just be deleted from your inventory, and I love the fact that in the newer games, the gun instead drops on the floor. This way you can just keep hitting the mystery box without worrying about whether or not you're going to lose the gun that you're holding, and it also allows you to trade guns with other players more effectively. It's pretty much a win-win. I see no issue with this feature. I've always argued in the past that sometimes having inconvenient features is actually a good thing for the game, but in this case, I don't think this would be good whatsoever to have that inconvenience of, oh my god, I accidentally got rid of my gun because I accidentally held X in front of a wall buy. Like, that's not a good feeling. That's never going to make the game fun. So allowing you to be able to get that gun back just by picking it up off the ground is a great quality of life feature. Another thing I really love is the Pack-a-Punch Tier 3 feature. Now, I will say, I do think I prefer the double Pack-a-Punch system from Infinite Warfare, but because that was only in Infinite Warfare and that was not in any of the other games, I do think I'm going to give the win to Modern Zombies in this case because I do prefer having 3 PAP tiers over just 1 Pack-a-Punch tier. I just think the 2 was more of a sweet spot in Infinite Warfare. I think it just hit a little harder. But I just think it's nice to have a more weapon progression. I think rarities really kill it for me nowadays though, because it's like another thing you have to progress your weapon in as well. But if it was just the 3 PAP tiers, I think it works a lot better, just focusing all your work on those tiers. And obviously with the classic point system back with Cursed Mode in Black Ops 7, I think it's going to be a lot more fun to actually try and get your weapons up to PAP tier 3 because you can actually do it more effectively with not having to worry about fully killing the zombies to get the points. And I really don't want to see them ever go back to just having 1 Pack-a-Punch tier. Like I said, maybe 2 Pack-a-Punch tiers would be fine with me, just like Infinite Warfare, but I don't want to see them go back to just 1. I think it's nice to have that extra layer of weapon progression that you can do throughout the match. Attachments are also handled really well in Modern Zombies, and I know there was attachments in the classic games with Black Ops 3, Infinite Warfare, and obviously World War II and BO4 also had weapon attachments, but those systems were very simple and didn't have a lot of depth to them, and some people might prefer that, but I actually kind of prefer what Modern Zombies does, where there's a lot of different attachments you can choose from, and it is kind of fun to try and find what the best possible attachment combination is. I think it only works when the attachments are balanced, though. You don't want to have a system where there's very clear best choices for the attachments. And I think some games like Modern Warfare 3 did this pretty well, especially with all the aftermarket part attachments that were added later into the DLC. I thought that was really cool because it basically made it so when they added new attachments, it almost felt like you had a completely new gun being added alongside that attachment. Black Ops 6 is doing a decent job with it as well, not as good as MWZ, but still a decent job, and I hope Black Ops 7 goes really far with it as well because it will be fun to have a new attachment drop and just be able to try that out out and just see how different it makes some guns feel. When it comes to perk upgrades, I do think augments are the best version of perk upgrades we've seen, but the issue is classic zombies didn't really try perk upgrades that often. They've done some map specific systems that kind of felt like perk upgrades. For example, in Black Ops 3, there was the mask system where some of the maps had different masks or helmets that would give you special abilities that basically worked like upgraded perks, and I loved that system, and I would love to see that system return, but it wasn't like a traditional perk upgrade system. They didn't really try that too often back in the day. Black Ops 4 was like the first game to really try something with that, and it didn't really work all that well, but augments are a pretty good perk upgrade system, and I would like to see augments return. I do want to see some changes to it though. I would like to see a system where you have augments selected, but you still have to do something in game to earn the augments. So maybe you have to get 50 kills in Ether Shroud to get your minor augment, and then 100 kills in Ether Shroud to get your major augment for it. Something like that. It doesn't have to be exactly those many kills, but something where it actually requires you to use the item in game to achieve those augments instead of just getting them right away when the match starts. Basically, my point is that perk upgrades have never been done perfectly, but I think augments is the closest to it that we've seen. I just think there needs to be a few more changes to make it absolutely perfect. Another thing Modern Zombies does very well is ammo mods. I love the way that ammo mods are handled, especially in Black Ops 6. I love the elemental weakness thing where some special enemies have specific ammo mods that damage them more than other ammo mods, which adds a whole nother layer of depth to the gameplay. I've always complained that maps nowadays don't have enough depth to them, but I do feel like there is a decent amount of gameplay depth because of systems like this where you have to think about what ammo mod you're using based on what special enemies you're fighting on that map. I just feel like over time, ammo mods have become a much more interesting part of zombies. Ever since they were, of course, introduced as AATs in Black Ops 3, they've really just gotten better and better in my opinion. So I'm definitely happy with where they're at in Black Ops 6, and hopefully they're even better and cooler in Black Ops 7. This next thing is something I don't really personally use myself that often, but I do still consider it a positive aspect of Modern Zombies, and that is the Exfil feature. I really don't exfil that often, and honestly the reason I don't is because they don't really give good rewards for it, especially in Black Ops 6, you just get whimsical gobblegums. I don't care about whimsical gobblegums. Obviously, you had to exfil in Modern Warfare Zombies. That was the whole point of the modes. That's obviously quite different. And sometimes in Cold War and Vanguard, I'll exfil just because there's nothing else to do when you're done with your game. But in Black Ops 6, with the save and quit feature, if I don't feel like playing anymore, I'm probably just gonna save and quit. I'm not gonna end the game either by letting myself die or exfilling. So they really need to give players much better rewards for exfilling to get people to do it more often. But generally speaking, I love the fact that the option is there. I think it's cool that you don't have to end your game just by dying or playing till you get bored. Instead, you can just actually end the game by exfilling. It's a pretty cool mechanic, and I would love to see this in every Zombies game going forward. It's completely optional, so I personally don't see the issue with it at all. I've seen some people criticize it, and I've never really understood it. Another thing I think that is very good about Modern Zombies compared to classic Zombies are the grinds. Now, let me be absolutely clear here. I do not like how the grinds have negatively impacted the core systems of Modern Zombies, especially with stuff like loadouts. A big reason loadouts exist is because of the grinds nowadays, like the camo grind. They feel like we need to have loadouts in the game in order to make the camo grind work. I do not like that aspect of it, but the very existence of having a lot of things to grind for in and out of the game is what I think is really cool about Modern Zombies. Going back to Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2, even World of War, there was barely anything you really could do in the game grind-wise. You would just pick up the map and then play it, and obviously all the content would be accessible there, which some people prefer that, but I do like having all these extra things to work towards, like camos and the different battle pass events that they do. I don't exactly love how it's implemented all of the time, but I just like the fact that there is always something you can do when you're loading up the game. Overall, I do think World War II Zombies has much better grinds, but of course we're talking about the era as a whole, and I do think that Modern Zombies does a little bit better when it comes to the quantity of grinds that you can go for within the game. But I do think that grinds are better when they're more map specific and it's more about trying to learn certain Easter eggs and side quests. So that type of stuff I want to see come back. But when it just comes to overall the ability to unlock specific cosmetics and items, there is a little bit more to do in Modern Zombies compared to some of the classic games. There's also just more updates to Modern Zombies. Back in the day, there was only 4 updates throughout the entire year, which was of course each of the new maps being added. But nowadays, they do something pretty much every other week, whether it's a new mode, a new event, or some sort of attachment being added to the game. There's a lot more consistent updates, which is very nice, even if all of these updates aren't great. I mean, I've criticized a lot of what they've been doing in Black Ops 6 with the events, for example. I really don't think all the events have been great. I think a lot of them have actually kind of sucked. But at least they're doing consistent updates. At least they're constantly adding stuff to keep the game as fresh as it can possibly be. And if we can go back to a lot of how the older games are like in terms of the quality, but we keep the consistent updates that we have nowadays, I think that would look pretty great for a full game. And the last positive I have about Modern Zombies compared to Classic Zombies is something that I'm not 100% certain on how I feel about it, but I do think the idea of free DLC is overall a good thing for the community. Now, we don't really know if it's a positive or negative based on the quality of the maps. A lot of people have argued that maybe back when the DLC maps had to be purchased, there was more of an incentive to make the maps as good as possible, whereas nowadays they don't really need to do that. They just need to make sure they're getting players to come back as much as possible through all these FOMO events and all these grinds, and they really don't need to make sure the maps are these incredibly unique and interesting experiences like they usually were more so back in the day from Black Ops 2 to Black Ops 4. But I think the idea of free DLC is good for the sake of the community, because back then a lot of people didn't buy the extra maps, so a lot of people just never got to experience all those extra DLC experiences. And sometimes, especially in a game like Black Ops 2, the DLC maps are the best part of that game. So if you only ever play the launch map, you're probably not going to have a great time in that game. So I do think this is good for the community overall. Is it great for individual map quality? I don't really know. It's hard to say at this point. But that's going to do it for everything I love and prefer about Modern Zombies. Let's now talk about Classic Zombies. And a lot of this is stuff I've already talked about many times before, but we're going to go through everything that I think Classic Zombies just did better overall. One of the most important things to me is, of course, the classic point system. I've talked about this a ridiculous amount of times. Obviously, the classic era did that better. Now, of course, thankfully, the classic point system is returning in Black Ops 7, specifically in Cursed mode, but it took over 4 games in this era to finally get that to happen, and of course, it's just going to be exclusively for that mode. I really hope once we get to Black Ops 8, they just stick with the classic point system entirely. I think changing the point system in Black Ops 4 was one of the worst things they've ever done. There was a few reasons why they changed it. I think one of the main reasons is they wanted to kind of streamline the amount of points you get per round so they can better balance the point economy in the game, so they kind of know like what they should price certain items. It's a bit harder to balance that when players are able to get a lot more points from the classic point system. But that point system was so much more fun because it allowed the early rounds to be way more engaging with more strategies on how to take on the zombies. It wasn't just about getting headshots on all the zombies as fast as you can. It was more so about knowing what's the best weapons to use against each individual zombie and when it's best to point max out of each individual zombie. And other times it's not a good idea to do that because if there's a lot of zombies spawning in, it might be kind of risky to try and do that. So it was an interesting risk versus reward system. It seems like they also wanted to change the point system because they didn't want to punish players for playing the game fast, which I never personally understood, because you can point max the zombies while still playing at a reasonable pace. You don't have to go slow by doing it. But even if you are going a bit slower, what's the harm in that? I don't think the game suddenly becomes unplayable if it's a bit slower paced. I think actually sometimes that's a good thing because it allows players to take in the environment more so, because nowadays people don't really enjoy the maps as much. They kind of just go right through the first 20 rounds just so they can finally get to those later rounds that are way more exciting, and those early rounds aren't really much of anything. Those early rounds in the older games were way more important. I mean, just go back to Mob of the Dead. Exploring that map on round 5 is one of the best experiences you can have in Zombies, and it's because it is much slower paced. You're still vulnerable though, you can still go down pretty easily, but you're taking your time with it and really taking in the atmosphere. And if you want to go faster, you can. It's really not the end of the world. You're not going to be at a massive disadvantage if you do that. So hopefully going forward, we can just see the classic point system. We really don't need that old one back. If they want to make some tweaks to it, I'd be fine with that personally, but I don't think the modern point system, it should stay in the standard version of this game anymore past Black Ops 7. But at least for Black Ops 7 itself, I am so happy we are at least getting the classic system in at Cursed mode. The classic point system also caused weapon variety to be a lot better. I know I mentioned before that weapon viability was really good with modern zombies, but like I said, viability is not the same as variety. There was different purposes for using different weapons when different weapons would earn you more points than others, and I thought that allowed for more variety within the match itself. You had a reason to swap between different weapons rather than just sticking to the same weapon in the entire game. This also led to the guns in the older games just having more personality to them. Even though I mentioned many times I love how powerful the modern weapons are, they don't really have nearly as much personality to them. The point system plays a big role in that, and also weapon rarities played a big role in that. I feel like having no rarities made weapons way more unique and interesting. Nowadays, you care more about the weapon's color rather than the actual weapon itself. When you hit the mystery box, you're looking for a high rarity weapon. You're not usually looking for a specific weapon, usually. Not having loadouts was also a much better thing about classic zombies. Of course, once we got to World War II and Black Ops 4, they started to introduce some kind of loadout system, but it wasn't like what we have now, where you can basically spawn in with whatever gun you want in the game, which I think completely goes against the point of zombies. Zombies was created to be this start with nothing and work your way up kind of mode, and being able to have whatever gun you want at spawn just kind of goes against the point of the mode. It also goes against the point of stuff like wall buys and the mystery box. And of course, just like with the classic point system, this is returning as a feature in cursed mode. So if you play cursed mode, you will not be able to spawn with whatever gun you want. It will instead be one of the pistols in the game. This is great, obviously, but we had to deal with 4 straight zombies experiences that had loadouts where you were able to spawn in with whatever gun you want, and it really did break the balance of the game. So this is obviously something I much prefer about classic zombies. For the past few years, more people have been talking about the HUDs in zombies. I feel like back in the day, people didn't really talk about it as much, but the HUDs have gotten so bad that everyone is just talking about them nowadays, especially because they haven't been unique to zombies. This has been a problem since Black Ops Cold War, and I also think the HUDs being incredibly intrusive and just having way too many things popping up has also been a bit of a problem since Black Ops Cold War, or maybe even Black Ops 4 in some ways, because that HUD definitely wasn't very good when it comes to how intrusive it was. I will say though, they have been taking steps to improve the HUD more and more over the years. Black Ops 6 obviously introduced HUD customization, which I thought was a great addition. This did not fix the HUD entirely though, because it still wasn't unique to zombies, and there was a lot of other problems with it, and the HUD customization settings overall just were not perfectly done. Black Ops 7 is going to make even more improvements. We're going to have HUD themes now. They are bringing back the classic score feed as well with the classic point system, so there's definitely a lot of improvements being made, but the HUD still doesn't look unique to zombies entirely, at least not the specific design of each widget. So overall, classic zombies just did better with this. Every HUD was unique to that mode, and sometimes they even went a step further and made unique HUDs for each map. Black Ops 2 did that, Black Ops 3 did it a little bit, Infinite Warfare did it with their inventory UIs. Those were really cool and different for each map. Just overall, the HUDs in those older games were a lot better. They were more condensed, they were more simple, but they were effective, and I absolutely loved those HUDs, and I think we should definitely go back to HUDs like that again. Something I haven't talked a lot about in my videos because I honestly don't fully know why I feel this way. It's kind of hard to tell exactly what makes it this way, but I much preferred the zombie AI in the older games. I thought the way you train zombies, the way the zombies interacted with the player and tried to hit the player, the speed at which they hit the player, the speed of the zombies themselves, it was just much better in the older games. I don't really like how the zombie AI is nowadays. It feels much more aggressive, and even though I want zombies to be more challenging, I don't think this is the best way to make it more challenging. I don't think it's fun to be on round 50 and zombies just swiping you like crazy. And of course, there's so many things to help protect you nowadays, like armor, so it just becomes this situation of you just constantly replating your armor again and again and again, because it's pretty much impossible to avoid taking damage from the zombies. I much preferred classic zombies with the way it was designed, where you weren't trying to mitigate damage from the zombies as much, whereas you were instead trying to avoid damage altogether. Chopper made a great point about this in his videos, where yeah, modern zombies is more about damage mitigation, whereas in a classic zombies, it was more about damage avoidance entirely. And I just thought that was more fun. I thought it was more fun to be training around a horde and you get hit once by a zombie, you get hit twice by another zombie, and you're like, oh my god, if I get hit one more time, I am dead. So I really have to avoid being hit again. And you would find these really interesting ways to juke out the zombies. And that was just way more fun. But now it's just make sure you're plating up as much as possible. Make sure you use your field upgrades at the right time. Make sure you pop your gobblegums at the right time. Make sure you use all these different items at the right time. It's all about these get out of jail free card systems rather than trying to actually properly train the zombies so you avoid being hit by them. I think the classic systems just worked a lot better with that, and I don't expect this to change with cursed mode in Black Ops 7 at all, but I do think going back to those older zombie AI systems would be much better. I also like that we didn't have damage scaling in the past. I'm not a fan of damage scaling as well. I liked that the early rounds were vulnerable. You actually could go down in them, and there wasn't this massive increase in the amount of damage zombies were doing to you throughout the rounds. Kind of similar to the conversation of damage scaling, I don't love the armor system. I don't necessarily hate it as much as other people do though. I'm definitely okay with it, at least in comparison to other modern systems. But I much preferred the shield system from Black Ops 2, Black Ops 3, and Black Ops 4. I thought it was more interesting that we had a map unique shield on a lot of different maps. It was more exciting to try to figure out what the shield is going to work like. And I think it just worked better with the zombie AI in those games. Again, I don't really love the idea of having to constantly replay your armor, especially because the difference between having your armor versus not having armor is pretty huge when it comes to how hard the game is going to be. When you have armor, you feel pretty safe. When you don't have armor, you feel like the game's 10 times harder. And I don't think the gap should be so big for something you have to constantly redo in the game. I know a lot of people don't like the armor system from World War II Zombies, but I actually think even that system was better just because of the fact that you didn't have to get armor as constantly. Like, yes, it's easier to get armor plates in modern zombies. It's easier to find them off the floor, but with the World War II armor system, you're only going to lose your armor if you take a certain amount of damage. You're not going to lose it just from getting hit once or twice from the zombies. So as long as you're good at avoiding being hit enough times, you're not going to have to keep getting more armor again and again and again. So I like that system a lot more personally. There could have been definitely some fixes to make it even better, but I preferred that over what we have now. I just don't love how most of my game is spent just replaying armor. When it comes to map uniqueness, the classic games did this way better. This has been one of the biggest problems with modern zombies for me. The streamlined systems that are on every single map definitely do take away from the uniqueness. Now, they've definitely gotten a little bit better with Black Ops 6, and hopefully Black Ops 7 will go even further, but even then, there's just way too many special enemies being reused. The SAM trial system was the exact same on every Black Ops 6 map. It's probably going to be the exact same on every Black Ops 7 map with the TED trial system. You have the crafting bench and the arsenal station and all those systems just, again, streamlined to every single map. All the guns are the same on every single map. The perks are the same. At least they made it so not all the physical perk machines are on every map, and some of them are exclusive to just the Wonder Fizz on some maps. But that's not nearly as unique as what Black Ops 2 did, for example, where there are some perks that are exclusively on just a few maps. There's definitely not as many map unique features and mechanics anymore as well. There's definitely some, don't get me wrong, it's not like they do none of those anymore. Obviously, the truck in Ashes of the Damned is going to be a unique feature, but they don't do nearly as much as they did in Black Ops 3, for example, where you had whole systems like the plant system on Zetsubou that was exclusively made for that map and was not on any other map. I hope Black Ops 7 can fix this, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. This is definitely something that classic zombies did way better. When it comes to the main quests, also known as the main Easter eggs, I also think these were much better in classic zombies, but of course it depends on the game. I'm one who says that the Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2 Easter eggs aren't that great in retrospect. Back in the day, of course, they were very new at the time, so they were pretty fun, but once we got to Black Ops 3, Easter eggs started to become much better. They were much more interesting, more in-depth. There was boss fights that were really fun, and then you have Infinite Warfare, World War II, and Black Ops 4 that, in my opinion, have some of the best Easter eggs we've ever seen, and then Black Ops Cold War, in my opinion, was a massive downgrade when it comes to the quality and the overall fun and depth of Easter eggs. Black Ops 6 got much better, though. I do think Black Ops 6's Easter eggs are a lot more interesting than what Cold War had to offer, especially with the boss fights. The boss fights are pretty good, and I'm hoping Black Ops 7 could be good in that way as well, and hopefully they can get even better and more complex, but I still don't think Black Ops 6's Easter eggs are nearly as good as the peak of the maps from Black Ops 3 to Black Ops 4. So definitely wish we get back to those really complex, really difficult, really challenging Easter eggs that some of the older Zombies games had. I just don't feel like we've had nearly as much of that in the recent games. I feel the same way when it comes to side quests or side Easter eggs. Now, Black Ops 6 does have a lot of side Easter eggs. The quantity is really solid, but a lot of them are just way too simple and, in my opinion, kind of boring. I think there was much better side quests in games like Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, and even Infinite Warfare in some cases. When it comes to side quests, I like the ones that are a bit longer and more challenging, also just has more depth to it. I don't like how simple the ones are in the newer games. but I also think the rewards should be unique and useful. So as long as a side quest can nail at least 2 out of 3 of those things, then I think it will be a pretty good side quest. And in my opinion, I don't think enough of the modern zombies ones really live up to that. Like I said, Black Ops 6 is definitely an improvement over Cold War, just like with the main Easter eggs, but it still isn't nearly as good as some of those classic zombies games. I also think overall the atmosphere of classic zombies was a bit better than what we have in modern zombies. And again, they're definitely getting better at this. I think Black Ops 6 was a massive improvement over Black Ops Cold War and Modern Warfare Zombies, even of course Vanguard, but I don't think the Black Ops 6 maps have nearly as interesting of atmospheres compared to some of the maps from Black Ops 3, Infinite Warfare, or Black Ops 4. There was just way more interesting locations, atmospheres, themes to those maps. Nowadays, I feel like things are, again, a little bit too streamlined. I mean, there's literally 3 maps in Black Ops 6 that all take place within the Liberty Falls area, and of course, they don't feel the exact same, but they just don't feel unique enough, and I'm hoping Black Ops 7 can finally fix that, and it seems like Ashes of the Damned is going to be one of the best looking maps we've had in a long time, so hopefully we'll get better and better maps when it comes to the atmosphere, but so far, Modern Zombies hasn't been great with that. I also did prefer the story in classic zombies, especially when it comes to the mystery. I feel like a lot of the story nowadays is more in your face and it's just kind of like thrown in cutscenes, and there's not as much mystery going on with it, I feel like, which I'm definitely not one to say that the story is the most important thing to me, because it's absolutely not. The story could be absolute dog shit, and as long as the gameplay is good and the atmosphere is good, I'm still going to be enjoying it. But I do think story is still important. I do think the lore is important to make players more immersed into the world, and I don't feel like I have been for a while. Hopefully Black Ops 7, again, I keep saying that for all these different points, hopefully this game can get better with that, and I do think I'm already more interested in it because of the fact that there's going to be an intro cutscene for every single map, and of course returning the OG characters is definitely interesting to an extent. I wasn't crazy about them doing that, but I think they're going to do it in an interesting and fun way. So hopefully the story will be much better in this game. And if they move further away from the campaign universe and try to separate it as much as they can, I think we're going to get a lot better stories going forward. And the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to what I prefer about classic zombies isn't really something about the individual games themselves. It is more so about the era as a whole. I loved the fact that we got 3 non-Treyarch Zombies experiences during that era, and we have not seen one since World War II Zombies. We of course had Vanguard and Modern Warfare Zombies, which were in non-Treyarch games, but the modes themselves were still primarily made by Treyarch. And I really do miss the idea of having the other studios do their own takes on the Zombies experience, because we got some very unique games and maps from that. Exo Zombies, even though I don't like it, is very unique, and it's definitely its own thing that Raven Software made. And then of course Infinity Ward made Infinite Warfare Zombies, which in my opinion is one of the best Zombies experiences of all time. There is so much unique stuff to that mode. It's so goofy and silly and out there, and that's not something Treyarch ever did to that extent. And then Sledgehammer went in the complete opposite direction with a horror-focused mode in World War II Zombies, which I thought was really cool as well. And we got so much unique content out of this, so I really wish we would see something like this happen again. It was definitely something I preferred about the classic era of zombies. Maybe with Call of Duty 2027, we'll finally see Sledgehammer make their own zombies mode again. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. And that is going to do it for all of the main things that I prefer about modern zombies and all of the main things I prefer about classic zombies. I thought this would have been a fun experiment to do, because I feel like nowadays people just get way too one-sided with how they feel about each era of zombies. They just always like to talk about how much they love one era, and they very rarely will even mention a single positive thing they like about the other era of zombies. And I think if we want to stop being so divided as a community, it's important to talk about this stuff more often. And so I challenge all of you to do the same in the comment section of this video. Let me know just at least a few things that you prefer about the classic era and a few things you prefer about the modern era. Now, it's entirely possible that you could be a person who prefers literally everything about classic zombies, quite literally every feature, every mechanic you think was better in the classic games. And I'm not going to say you can't do that, because you certainly can be that person. There is nothing wrong with that. If we are going to respect all opinions, then that one has to be respected too. I just think that's a quite rare thing to feel, because certainly there's at least one thing you can think of that the other era does better. But again, it's entirely possible that you just don't think that whatsoever. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I will see you on my next one. Peace out.